confirmation bias. Okay, confirmation bias is a pretty easy mistake to make. We all have done it at one point or another. The way it works is simply this. You have some preconceived notion about something or how we want it to be, and so whatever evidence comes along that confirms it, you accept, and evidence that doesn't quite confirm it, or evidence that you think confirms it but doesn't, you don't accept in that way, right? So, a simple example would be like, let's say Lacey and I are detectives, and we go in and there's a body on the floor, and I say, I figured it out. The butler did it. And Lacey's looking at me going, Duncan, it's a studio apartment, and the guy looks like he's 100. I don't think he was murdered by a butler. I'm going to be like, but there's a tea set over there in the corner, and only butlers serve tea, so therefore, right? And Lacey's going to go, yeah, I just went and checked his bathroom. He's got a ton of heart medication. I'm pretty sure he just had a heart attack, right? But I could keep going on and be like, but see, the butler wanted you to think that. That would be confirmation bias, right? Part of why we kind of criticize a lot of these like financial shows is because they do a lot of that with how they do their research and how they sort of give advice about, well, this is what makes a millionaire and this doesn't. So I wanted to kind of set that up before we started this, but we can jump right in with the Money Guy Show. Give me 1 second. Oh, wow. Here we go. Everything's malfunctioning. All right. So this is Brian Preston and Bo Hansen, and they're going to talk to you about things that they would have told themselves when they were younger about finance.
What we wish we knew about money earlier. It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy. Brian, I am excited about this because one of the best things that we get to do as human beings is learn from our past mistakes. And often as time moves on, we build wisdom, and that wisdom allows us to make better decisions moving forward. So you and I talked about there's a lot of things that we've learned about money, either personally as we have interacted with money or through our clients. It's like, man, I wish I would have caught on to that earlier. If I could tell a young person, you should know this thing, I would camp on this that you should have.
You know what I love about Bo? He could have been a TV host. He's always excited about everything. Everything is always really exciting.
I do really appreciate the energy behind what he has to say. Like, he's very into all of it. So good for him.
Yeah.
I feel like I've never quite caffeinated enough to quite beat
that. That's exactly our annual wealth survey. So many people give that when we have the comments section. It's like, man, why didn't somebody come talk to my 20-year-old self and tell them this? So this is all the nuggets of information that we wish we'd have known earlier. All right, so let's jump into this first one. This first one I really like. I think this is a pretty unique one. I'm going to give you credit because I think you're the one who came up with this headline. We said that the first thing we wish we would have known about money earlier is that having money is like being cool. Brian, what does that mean? I feel like we...
There you go, Lace. Having money is like being cool.
Wait, what?
That's the first thing. If they were going to go talk to themselves at 20.
We need to watch more for them to explain it?
Oh, we will. We will. I just think it's funny because it kind of fits a little bit in line with our...
Worthington's Law?
Right, our constant joke about Worthington's Law, the idea that money equals better than... They're not quite saying that, but then they'll lean into it. Watch them lean right back into it. It's pretty good.
We need to snap our fingers while we're talking about this, because that's what's cool. It's one of those things. If you are cool, you don't try to be cool. Exactly. This is one of the first things I learned, not only from watching all those romantic comedy movies about teenagers, you can't buy me love and so forth, but if you're really cool, you don't try to be cool. Well, the same thing can be said about money. If you have money, you don't have to try to look like you have money. And we actually have, look, in the past when we've covered this, we've showed really odd-looking people. You think about Zuck and his pullover, his hoodie. You think about Bill Gates and how he looks all disheveled and stuff. We decided, let's actually marry cool and wealthy together with this thing. Yeah, check out this clip right here.
Jay-Z is getting richer and richer, and he's wearing less and less shit to look rich. Does anybody notice that? Hov is the one that's taking these meetings with other wealthy people. And you keep going in these rooms with these people trying to look like money. No, you got to sound like money, think like money. My God. Because all that is a bluff to these people. Wealthy doesn't have to prove to anybody that they're wealthy.
Okay. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think they should have labeled it as something else, which is kind of me nitpicking on the like titling, because initially I was like, what? Well, you know what? I don't so much mind the idea behind this statement that you don't necessarily need to, outwardly flaunt that you have money if you have money. Like it's not a
Sure.
It's not a thing you necessarily have to be trying to prove yourself about. I appreciate that idea.
Yeah, but it's tangible. If I physically have wealth, then I know that. I don't necessarily have to say anything about it. The other thing about it too is, like, it's different from being cool, because if you're cool, that's an impression other people have. Right.
Yeah, that's pretty subjective, and it's other people's idea.
The other thing about this is, I'm going to disagree with the guy that they clipped there. Jay-Z has always been, I mean, since the 90s, has been a businessman. He's owned record companies. I mean, he's got a whole lifestyle brand. They sell clothing, alcohol, shoes, books. I mean, he's got all kinds of stuff, right?
Right. He's really got a broad sort of array of things going on for himself, honestly.
But the difference is when they're talking about how he dresses, it's like, well, he hasn't been really an active rapper in a long time. I think his last actual album was whatever, 2017, and even then he wasn't super involved with it. But when you're a performing artist, you have to wear all that crap because you're selling an image, right? You're selling a style, right?
Right. So the idea is perhaps now he's walking into the world a bit more like a businessman,
right?
More so than a rapper. Although being a rapper is a portion of his business. It's
one
facet of many.
Right. The other facet of it is the guy's like 53. I think he's kind of just sort of checked out on, do I really want to buy all this stuff and put all this stuff on and do all this every day. I mean, it's one thing when you're 30. It's another thing when you're when you're older, right?
Well, and I have to tell you, there's some things that fashion wise I have enjoyed for 20 years and I will always enjoy. But there are other things that I maybe liked 20 years ago that I maybe just not so into now. So, I mean, really, it could be just some of his preferences have shifted too.
Oh, I'm sure. But let's do this real quick. This is 2021, this last year. It's a video he did with his wife, Beyonce. Now, does he appear in this video as a rapper that he's trying to exude wealth? I'm going to mute this so we don't get copyrighted. Does any of this seem like he's exuding wealth? The bracelet, the watch, the house, all of his wife's junk. I mean, the thing starts out with him in a Rolls Royce they don't make anymore. I mean, so this idea that Jay-Z's changed because he's become wealthier. He's been wealthy for a long, long time. He's just changed now that he's a businessman and he's running in different circles. If I'm going to go in and meet, let's say, a client, and the client is a corporate executive, right? I will wear a full suit. If I'm going to go meet a client who's a nightclub owner, they don't want to see that. If I'm going to go meet a client who is an engineer, they're not going to want to see me in a full suit. It makes them feel uncomfortable that you don't look like them. Right? So there's a difference between dressing the part for the business, for your business meeting, as opposed to, I'm just doing it because I'm just so wealthy. I just don't feel the need to. I think they're making a correlation that it doesn't really exist. Right. That's why I think it's an odd. Plus, it's an odd thing to say. Like you're going back and talking to your 20-year-old self, and that's the first thing you say is don't. Is what having money means you can just do whatever or dress however. I mean, yeah, of course it does. I mean,
I feel like I would tell my 20-year-old self that Starbucks does not need to go on your credit card
right.
or something. Like something super, super pragmatic like that.
Right.
Not that I got myself into a whole bunch of trouble, but I was putting a lot of frappuccinos on that stupid credit card, and I would sit down 20-year-old me and be like, seriously, you've got the few bucks, just like use your real money.
All right. So let's get into
not this whole philosophical thing.
Right. Well, let's see who they're really talking to here, because that's the problem. They're not talking to Jay-Z. Right. I just think it's an odd example because he doesn't really fit.
Yeah, man, I love that. Wealthy does not have to prove to anybody that they're wealthy. I feel like we live in a society, in a world, and culture where it's all about what can I put on my reel? What can I show on TikTok? What can I put on Facebook to show how successful I've been? But when you actually talk to wealthy people who've had success and been able to do that, it's a lot less about showing that they're wealthy, and it's a lot more about actually having wealth to back it up.
Yeah, I even, look, I won't go into it, but even Chappelle, in his most recent Saturday Night Live, gave the whole, somebody had said something, it's a controversial person, we won't talk about that now, but he's like, oh, putting a gold chain inside my shirt for a second.
Yeah.
So it is interesting, though, that it seems like the richer people get, the less they care. You are constantly lobbying, Bo, I'm going to put this as a correlation to your success,
Sure.
that we ought to go, not just jeans every day, but you think we ought to be wearing the athleisure.
Full-on athleisure,
Just to play off this book.
Yep.
I don't know if I can buy into that, but I do know this, is that when you read the book, Dr. Stanley had the book that came out after Millionaire Next Door was Stop Acting Rich.
Yep.
I'm probably slaughtering this.
Stop acting rich and start living like a true millionaire.
Because there are, if you look at people who actually have money.
Okay. Let's look at people that have money. How does a true millionaire live? Finally, they got to it.
They don't waste it. Everything has to have value to it.
No, it's really interesting.
They don't waste money?
Everything has to have value to it?
Yeah. People waste money all the time. Rich or not. Elon Musk is down $107 billion this year. He went from number one to number two. I mean, rich people waste money all the time.
Well, I guess you could be a little bit broad about what you mean by value, because, I mean, some people might say it's a waste of money to buy a first-class airline ticket, and other people might see there as being value in it because they feel more comfortable and they value their comfort.
Yeah, but let's see who they're talking.
Saving the money.
But they haven't gotten to the point.
I guess I'm just trying to see where they're going with
They
this.
haven't gotten to any sort of point yet. Who are they talking about? Because we're not talking about Jay-Z, right? We're talking about people who are, I guess, wealthy but don't act like they're wealthy, right? So let's find out who those are.
There were some cool stats that got pulled out of that. Again, now this data is from 2009. We'll address that in a second. But when Dr. Stanley was doing his research, he found that millionaires on average spend $16 on their haircuts. 4 in 10 own a bottle of wine that's less than $10, and they on average spend about $31,000 on cars. But Brian, this is obviously data from 2009. Things have changed. Things have shifted. So we wanted to adjust that a little bit.
Yeah, so we updated it to 2022, inflation adjusted, and you still look. Millionaires spend about $22 on haircuts. Mm-hmm. We actually went around the room. I think I spent $25 on haircuts just with this whole inflation. It's not.
Okay. So, have you solved the mystery yet who they're talking about? What kind of millionaire are they talking about that spends $22 on a haircut and $43,000 on a car? This is the problem. This is essentially the problem. The person they're talking about, the average sort of millionaire, these average prices, and you got to be careful with averages, right? Because you put, me and Lacey in a room with Bill Gates, and our average wealth is hundreds of billions, right? Tens of billions, right? You take Bill Gates out of the room, our average wealth, our average wealth goes down. What they're talking about is they're talking about couples who are usually in their 50s, 60s, 70s, right? Who own a home, and combined, their net worth is $1 million, right? But most of that money is locked into retirement accounts that they depend on, or the value of their home. It's usually combined, right? So it's not like they have $1 million to spend at any given, unless they want to liquidate all their stuff, sell their house and liquidate all their accounts, right? So what you're talking about is sort of a middle class person whose net worth happens to be around $1 million. So the fact that they're living like this isn't because they're smart millionaires. It's because this is what they can afford if they want to get by every month. Because a lot of these people are dependent on that money in their accounts to pay for their bills every month. They're on fixed incomes. Granted, they're better off than a lot of people on fixed incomes, but they still don't want to bleed out their cash, right? So this is not so much an active choice as much as it's just this is what's practically available, right?
Right.
So I don't know what they're talking about. If here's the advice I would give my 20-year-old self: rich people don't act rich. Well, that's certainly not true. Rich people do it all the time. They buy spaceships and they buy yachts. And I mean, people do all kinds of crazy stuff. When you're talking about a millionaire in the United States, you know, sort of the lower end millionaire, right? That's what you're talking about as a couple. And just to look at what that looks like, because this is what always bothers, because they're using Stanley was the Millionaire Next Door guy, just like Dave Ramsey stuff. And this is why we kind of criticize them. I know people think we're sometimes mean about it, but it's not meant that way. It really isn't. So millionaires by age in the United States. Okay. So what did I figure? Investopedia figured about 21.95 million people in the U.S. are millionaires. So about 8.5% of the adult population. Okay. Those that are millionaires under 29 years old, about 6%. It's about 1.3 million. 30 to 39, it's about 400,000, and it's about 2%. A lot of it has to do with recession and stuff like that they lived through. 40 to 49, 7%. 50 to 59, okay, about 23% of all the millionaires are between 50 and 59. But most millionaires are over the age of 60. Right? Now, I know the percentages add up to 99 because it's approximated, but that means...
And at that point, it's more likely that you've been able to pay off your home and you've been able to have your retirement accounts benefit from compounding from a lot of years, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and your home has increased in value because you've owned the house for 20 or 30 years. But if you factor that in, that's 84% of millionaires are over the age of 50. So who are we really talking to here? That's who we're talking to. Right? We're talking, if we're saying, hey, wealthy people don't act wealthy, probably because they're in their 50s and 60s and they don't care. And probably because, as wealthy as they may be in that hypothetical sense, a lot of them are either living on fixed incomes or about to live on a fixed income. So they don't want to spend a lot of money because they need that money to last for 30 years.
Right.
So this idea that if you just don't, I don't know, that you somehow, if you just add this conservative spending thing, yeah, it's going to somehow translate into wealth, doesn't translate.
But they might be the barely millionaires, and I'm not saying that's not an accomplishment, but you're in your 60s, you're retired, you've hit millionaire status, you're using the safe withdrawal rate of 4% and living off of $40,000 per year. So you're a millionaire, but if you're living off of $40,000 a year,
well,
then,
if you're,
because you're trying not to dig into your nest egg or whatever, then yeah, you're maybe getting the $16 haircut,
Yeah, because you've also got whatever you're withdrawing plus your Social Security, if you have a pension, if you're lucky enough to have that. But like you said, that money's got to last. And so, yeah, you really want to go out and spend $100 on your hair. And furthermore, if you're freaking 60, I mean, how much dating are you doing that you really care about your hair and your clothes that much, right? Where are you going that I need to spend all that money, right?
Well, at the point of which you're retiring, I mean, some people, in their 60s are still working, but, some of these people conceivably are retired. At the point at which you're retired, you don't have to maintain your professional wardrobe and your professional haircut as much. I mean, if you want to, certainly you're entitled to it, but it stops being a requirement at the point at which you're retired. So you might really just not be wanting to spend a lot on that.
Right. Plus, you got to remember too, a lot of this is not for these kinds of millionaires that we're talking about. These average ones that they're talking, not as cash is not liquid. So like a lot of it is in the house, right? So unless they sell the house, they don't have that money. So let's say the house is worth 700,000 and they owe, let's say they don't owe anything on it, right? And they have together they have 400,000 in the in savings or in retirement funds, right? Oh, they're millionaires, but most of it is in the house, so they can't spend that until they sell the house. So if you look at, let's just look at the percentages of people here. So the bottom 50% here is on the far right. Real estate is over half their wealth. So their personal home is over half of their money. So half their money they can't spend until they sell the house, right? But if you look at like the real wealthy over here, a lot of their money is in corporate equities, right? Stocks, bonds, business ownership. People in the upper percents have usually a lot of it's pensions and entitlements that they got from their jobs because they usually had higher paying executive kind of jobs. You don't see that in the lower class, in the bottom half of the country. And most of the bottom half of the country are not going to be millionaires. It's going to be everybody to the left of that. The bottom half are not at all. So I mean, I can see it's a weird advice trick, but the thing about it is at the end of the day, what it comes down to is what they're really selling is a lifestyle brand. And what that simply means is they're selling you a lifestyle attached to a product, right? If I have this shoe, right, I'm going to have that kind of lifestyle, right? The guy who's selling the shoe, right? You see this a lot with athletic wear. You see this a lot with well, one of the great one, alcohol commercials, cigarette commercials, right? Or ads. It's always they're super cool people and they're surrounded by a bunch of attractive people having fun because they're selling the lifestyle with the brand. People that have this brand have this lifestyle, right? This image. And that's kind of what they're doing here. Only it's odd because they're doing it with what they're saying are financial plans, but they're really products that they're selling, right? Buy our financial products and you can have this sort of calm, cool lifestyle and be millionaires, but you have to be in this sort of bracket, right? And it's an odd kind of way to do it to me, because what they're really selling is, well, a real millionaire doesn't act like a millionaire. They just know it. And then they have these few things, right? But then where does the rest of their money go? To what? Financial products? I mean, depends. Depends on the situation.